Tevez sta solo, Tevez al limite dell'area, fa fuori tutti, Tevez, si apre la porta, Tevez, gol, da dietro, Pirlo dentro,
Ciao Juventini, welcome back to the All Juve Cast channel, of course, where it's all Juve all the time, and we are going to tackle what went down in the Champions League yesterday. Unfortunate loss in a must-win match to Benfica. We fall 4-3, and the scoreline is flattering, if we're being completely honest. All right, so there's a lot to tackle. We're going to kick things off with some of the news that's circulating today in the aftermath. Then we're going to get to a quick recap. Trust me, I don't want to relive this match as much as any of you, but we'll quickly go through the highlights, everything like that, and then we'll tackle where to go from here and what our thoughts are on Juventus and everything. And we are going to have call-ins for the Storm the Barn session today, all right? So we're going to end up doing some call-ins later on. Now, and I'll have the details on that and how you get yourself involved. I want to quickly just get some housekeeping out of the way, and that is that for everyone tuning in on your audio outlets, head over to YouTube, subscribe to the channel. That's where you get your daily update videos. That's where we have the match day lives. That's where I'll bring you live watch-alongs covering Juventus action for you as well. For everyone that's asking how to support the channel and help us out, obviously super chat is enabled in the chat sessions here on our lives. Not only that, but if you check out our store, which is directly linked with us on YouTube, there's a great new Del Piero design there that's available to everybody. So get yourself some cool custom merch and support the channel. Now, let's get to some hellos in the live chat here, get kind of these thoughts here before we get into some news and everything. So Jeremiah coming in here and saying, hey guys, sitting deep in a must-win game, starting underperformers every game, snubbing top youth quality, every new low swept under the rug, etc. The first step in the right direction is to sack Max. So Jeremiah coming in and hot right out of the gate, and honestly, it is hard to argue with anything said there. Bob Yogsell saying bye-bye Champions League money and bye-bye Max, please. Yeah, so this is going to be it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough here to make this one through without actually getting into a big rant, but I have a lot of things that we're going to get off our chest here. And chat coming in here saying gutted, but united we stand as Juventini. We're gonna get to thoughts on Juventini, what I'm seeing out there in social media and everything, and just where it is. But there's a lot of changes that need to happen, and it can be argued that should we have made those changes when a lot of us were calling for that, potentially we could be in a better scenario right now at the moment and probably could have salvaged more out of the season. But again, that just stands on what your beliefs are and how much weight you put on players, how much weight you put on coach. But something's got to give, because I don't think we can continue this season the way we're going. And just a continuation from last season, big games, we have failed consistently since last season. Something has to change. Every time you hit a measuring stick match, you fail and fall flat on your face, and it just can't keep happening. There's no progress being made. The wins here and there against these sides, again, we got a couple of wins in there, but Empoli and whatnot, and the same questions are there for this team. And I said, don't get too high on this Empoli thing, and 4 goals and whatnot. It feels great at the time, but I saw a lot of problems and issues and system failures that I said a good team will capitalize and cause you problems. And here we go into Benfica, and that's exactly what we see. Neville saying mentally very weak, and it starts from Allegri. Can you imagine Allegri's attitude at halftime? Every Juventino was calling for answers to Benfica, and clearly for Allegri, this match was important. It was a failure, and there's no other way to put it, regardless of Max's words. And he came out and he said, look, this part just infuriates me, because this is before the match even takes place, okay? Before the match, if we should not advance in the Champions League, that is not a failure. I don't want to hear that shit before we play a must-win match. Okay, that is the last set of words that should come out of your manager's mouth before you head out there and whatnot. And the truth is, it's not even a truthful statement. It is a failure, Max. Okay, the bare minimum for this team was making top 4 and advancing to the round of 16. You have failed to do so. That is a failure. I don't care about what you say. It is a failure. That was the bare minimum objectives for this team. Okay. Round of 16, making top 4. Bare minimum. You didn't accomplish it. It is a failure. You missed out on objective. Don't try and feed us a silver lining about Europa League because we may not even make Europa League. We may not even make it the way we're going right now. So Benfica's through. Benfica's through with that match yesterday. You think they might not even go all out against Maccabi. But to be honest, I don't think Benfica needs to go all out to get a result against Maccabi. And it's done. What do we say? I've been saying for a while now, we needed to get our job done before we even think about the help we need in this competition. And we couldn't even get our part of it done. And to be honest, this team, it didn't deserve to be in that Champions League based on what we were seeing and what he was getting. So it is it is what it is. We're gonna get to some news. Okay, so obviously when it rains, it pours. Vlahovic is dealing with an injury to his adductor. It's going to be evaluated today. We will wait to see what happens there with Vlahovic. As far as the rumors circulating today about Max will not be sacked until at least the World Cup break, where things will be evaluated further. Okay, there's rumors saying that management has told Max start utilizing the youth, and they don't like the direction it's going in. That's bullshit, in my personal opinion. There's no way they're going to start putting pressure on a manager that's there to use certain guys and do anything like that. No, it's just going to be a matter of if they're going to get rid of him or not. For me, without question, that's the first step that needs to take place, because again, we're breaking all the wrong type of records, and yesterday was another one. First time in the history of Champions League and Juventus that they drop 3 goals. Okay, that they give up 3 goals in a half. Okay, the first half of football. Awful. There's rumors about after this one, Di Maria potentially leaving January now that we're out of the Champions League. Mirko Di Natale saying that outside of Di Maria's camp, it is being reported that those are all false statements and that it is not happening. Okay. And again, a little furthermore on Vlahovic, as these updates were coming in, I was just taking them all. They have a good feeling about Vlahovic and that he exited the match at the right time to prevent it from being something serious. Okay. In terms of anything else, there's nothing really concrete. Obviously, Illing Jr. came in at about the 76-minute mark of the match and played fantastic, did a great job. And then, of course, now we found out that they're potentially looking at extending his contract. This isn't a one-game based scenario or anything. You're just hearing about it now because he's trending based on his performance yesterday and what went down. Okay, but they've been looking at extending his for a bit here. It should probably get done, and those are what the reports are coming out right now. Okay, so we take a look at some of the comments coming in here, and we've got Sweaty. There's only 3 unbeaten teams in here: PSG, Benfica, and Napoli, and 2 of them are in our group, and we were basically second string throughout the group stage. That's not a consolation for me, Swarid. I mean, it's cool, but for me, it's just not a consolation. I still say we're better than what we've shown. This team continues to go out there misguided and led in a poor fashion. Okay, so let's talk about unbeaten teams before I even get into the match and everything. You're facing an undefeated team. Okay, you're facing an undefeated team, a team that has already beaten you and showed what they can do. And you're going into their house. And from the outset, you surrender your territory and you drop your line so deep, almost at the damn penalty spot, without pressure and pushback to regain space, that is not going to bode well. It's just in Champions League, it's not going to bode well. That was hard to do that with an incredibly locked in defense that we had before, was still nail biting, and we still came out edge of our seat matches. Now, you want to try and do this now? No. Allegri has proven to be some type of um, link to try and rekindle the past, when in reality, we are seeing we need to move. We need to move in the future. Okay. We need to move properly and stop looking behind us, because what do I always say? You're not going to get anywhere if you keep looking backwards. All right. So it's time to look ahead. It's time to play without fear and start having the right approach. This approach is not going to get us anywhere. It just isn't going to get us anywhere. And we're getting outplayed not only by Benfica, we're getting outplayed by Maccabi, we're getting outplayed by Monza, we're getting outplayed by essentially everyone. Okay. Well, how many games have we actually led in possession, felt in control, whatever? I can think of one match. I can think of one match this season where we were actually in control. And even there was a 20-minute lapse. It's not good enough. That is not good enough. And it's not even good enough for us to get the bare minimum, which is round of 16. Again, talking about Max last season, going into this season, big games, every single big game, he has faltered in. And we continue to just fall by the wayside. It needs to stop. You need to stop the bleeding. Players, I have a tough time going that all in and hard on these players when in actuality there's nothing there. How many times yesterday against Benfica did you see linking play of 4 or 5 string quick succession passes? Sometimes it takes us 5 minutes to string 4 passes together. It's not good enough. You see the difference of a team that has ideas, has a system, knows where each other is going to be, against us, which is freewheeling. It's freewheeling for the most part up ahead, and it has to change. Without a system, how can you even truly properly gauge and define your players? How can you even properly gauge your players without a system? How can you identify, hey, we need this, we need that? I've been saying for a while, I don't care who you put on this team right now, without something set system that they can all share and rely upon, it's just going to continue to be a group of individuals. And certain guys are better than others, and that'll shine through. But ultimately, the same questions will always be asked of this team as long as Max is at the helm. And that's if they can get it done against big teams. Where will their system falter and leave and let them down? And so far for us, it's against every decent team. Okay. And some of the weaker ones. Change has to come. All right. We're going to quickly get into this. Okay. We're going to quickly get into this match. Just a quick recap. Okay. So as far as the lineup went, obviously Sandro was slated to start, had issues. So we ended up getting Gatti in there for this one. Okay. So you had Szczesny in goal. You had Gatti, Bonucci, and Danilo as your 3 center backs. You had Quadrado, McKennie, Locatelli, Rabiot, and Kostic across the middle. Vlahovic and Keane. This starting lineup, there was a lot of discussions leading into this game about, well, why not play Miretti and all this? We're going with these guys. And then the counter argument was, look, I could see it from both sides. Hey, we need some changes here. Maybe get some Miretti in there to mix it up. McKennie's, just hasn't been doing it. But then all of a sudden, you look at it, and the flip side is, it's worked for a couple games. You want to keep going with it. And this is a do or die. If you change it and it doesn't work, it's just one of those guessing games. Ultimately, this lineup was, it just, the guys on the pitch, there was mistake after mistake after mistake, and it was ugly all over the place. And Benfica took it to us out of the gate, and they got a goal early on, 60 minutes in, and a short corner. and our guys are sleeping. McKennie had no desire to go and close down the space. And we get a cross in, and Bonucci loses his man easily. A man that's right in front of him to his left, 2 feet away, and then just makes a run, and he's nowhere near. And even Gatti could have jumped up and taken that. He doesn't get to it, and it's buried. We're 1-0 down 16 minutes in. And again, just allowing that space, allowing like no desire to close down that space and not give them an easy cross in. And Bonucci absolutely asleep at the wheel there. 21st minute, corner kick for us. Danilo first to it, as he's been a lot this season. First to it on the corner. Back post, Vlahovic sees it in. Obviously, discussions about potential handball, everything like that. It was checked. It stood 1-1. Okay, so sign of life, getting that goal back quickly. Big things, but didn't change anything. Benfica still putting us under. 27th minute, handball gets called on Cuadrado. And if you watch this play back, here you go. Gatti had an opportunity to clear it. He didn't clear it. Cuadrado was too close. They miscommunicated. And to be honest, hits the player's chest, and then Cuadrado steps into him. His hand is there. I could see this being called and not being called. It's honestly their discretion, but ultimately so lackadaisical in our own end to even get to this point. It's a PK, and João Mario steps up and buries it. It's 2-1. And there, it doesn't stop. 34th minute, on the run, Benfica finds another through Rafa Silva there. And Danilo, again, not closing down on his man. The cross is allowed in, and Gatti knew nothing of this. He had Cuadrado coming back on his right side. So Gatti had the runner that came in, which ended up being Rafa Silva, and Gatti had the man behind him. He needs to, if he can't communicate to Bonucci, because this Rafa Silva made the run in behind Bonucci. As he came from his side slightly behind. If Gatti can't communicate that quickly enough, he needs to step in there because that's the immediate threat. And you have to just trust Cuadrado can get to that back post coverage there. And if he doesn't, it is what it is. But again, just awful at the back. It's 3-1. And it ends at halftime there again, breaking all the wrong records. Okay, 3 goals allowed in the first half of Champions League for the first time in Juve's history. Extremely frustrating. Milik comes on for Keane at half, and it is what it is. Hopefully he can spark something. Not so much. 49th minute, Bonucci with an absolutely lazy pass forward, trying to hit Locatelli. Wasn't even close, and he takes his time getting back to his position. Still barking our orders, looking ahead as he's trotting back. Gatti, who's playing on the right side of Bonucci. Bonucci, when he wins this ball, is out on the right flank. Naturally, if you're playing a 3 center back system, you slot back into the center. If your center back, who's at the middle, is out on the right flank, you slot back. Okay. So Bonucci with a lazy pass forward, but he starts to trot back, and Gatti waits for him to get back as well, rather than sliding in and just taking your time, at least gain possession again before taking back your original positions. No, we don't do that. Gatti stands there, and Bonucci doesn't get over in time, and they find their player in the middle of the area wide open, and he buries. And it's 4-1, and it's just mistakes like this are so hard to swallow. Okay, it's just unbelievable to see things like that at this level. That's why this team is not, they don't deserve Champions League football. If you're making mistakes on fundamentals and basic positioning like this, it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. What we got exactly what we deserved, and we were 4-1 down. In the 60th minute, Szczesny makes a big save, stopping it from being 5-1. We get some subs at the 60th minute. We get some more at 76. Illing Jr. being one of those. And he does great work in the 76th minute, taking his guy on and getting a nice cross in there. Milik ends up burying it. In the 79th minute, McKennie adds another one. But honestly, all that does is make the score line respectable, but it doesn't help overall any feeling out of this match. The feeling is still the same we got pumped. Okay, we got pumped. Those are consolation goals. Illing did well and whatnot, but there's some that are going to go off the deep end now, saying he needs to start all these games and everything like that. Look, it's a combination of things that we saw yesterday, and it's a combination of these things that leads me to not have to see any more about making a coaching change and this is my personal opinion. Okay, and before we dive into this and everything, we're gonna just ask if you could just take a second, like the video, it would help out. And if you're new here, of course, subscribe to the channel. All right, but here's a couple things. You have a manager that is essentially he's banking on his vets. Okay, so I see multiple problems here with this whole thing. You have a guy banking on his veterans. His veterans are not good enough. They have not been good enough. Cuadrado is just enough is enough from here on out. Whether we believe that the 3-5-2 has been the best for us or whatnot, you can't do that anymore because Cuadrado should not be starting matches, period. He has been an absolute nightmare this season, and yesterday it continued. Bonucci is suffering tremendously, and he was awful yesterday. He still, to this season, has not been to the depths of Cuadrado. So the 3-5-2, if you don't have a solution, if you don't think Sule can play at that right wingback position for Cuadrado, then you switch it to a 4-2-3-1. But Cuadrado does not start any matches here on out if I'm in charge. I'm sorry. It has not been good for him, and it's been hurting us. And yesterday in a do or die match, Max banked on his experienced guys, and they fell flat on their face. Okay. Yeah. You combine that with a pragmatic approach. Okay. So we have a coach banking on vets, arguably not giving guys faith, even despite subpar performances. You have the vets just not being good enough and not showing enough. And then you have a pragmatic approach. We talked about that. You have an unbeaten team. You're going into their house, and your approach is fearful, extremely fearful. This all doesn't bode well for Juve, and it didn't bode well. And we got absolutely punished for it. 2 out of those 3 problems that I just laid out are directly Max's doing and Max's fault. It is incredibly frustrating to go through this and continue to see these types of failures. Now, I don't expect him to be gone. I didn't expect him to be gone today because I thought if it was going to happen, it would have happened around the Monza match, and Monza would have been the opportunity. You had a break shortly after that, an international break. So they didn't get together through the international break, didn't get it through after the Retiro. The same questions remain, and the same failures become evident, and it is what it is. Naveen saying, we all know Cuadrado and Bonucci will start next game. Frustrating. Dell saying, how many sitters did Benfica miss? We still lose if everyone converts their sitters. Absolutely. Genius, I actually thought Gatti was one of the bright spots. Some good blocks and forward passes, runs. I don't want to get too hard on him, but it's tough in a Champions League match for a guy that's played 180 minutes in Serie A to come in there and expect this chemistry or this to be locked on. So again, does that not pose an issue though? You've got to put a guy in based on something that's going on in warm-ups and whatnot. So Sandro now all of a sudden can't come in. Do you think Gatti would have maybe been able to realize, hey, he's out here, I need to slide in here centrally, wait for him to come back? If maybe he had more than 180 minutes of playing, not all those minutes were with Bonucci either. You've got the rotation. Max is banking on the experienced guys. And again, if our project is in fact these promising youngsters, and we always talk about the talent that we've actually put together, and Cherubini has done a good job there, what good is it if you have a guy that will always bank on the experience? And we got into this in depth with the last post-match podcast where I started talking about integration of these young guys. What good is it to this team that Paredes comes in there, has virtually no effect on this team, and we sent Rovella away, who's balling out for Monza, who, even if he had struggles, and we, of course, would have seen growing pains with Rovella, but at least it would have been with us. It would have been with us, and he can grow with us and be part of that future. There's so many questions I have, and one of the biggest ones is Max, in fact, the right guy for a team that is, in fact, trying to do something with younger players and build for the future? Are we even trying to build for the future? Is that even our goal? Because you have to really question that with Max being at the helm. Like, I'm not seeing it all coming together. I'm not seeing it all come together. And now, I talked about Max's words prior to the match, talking about this is not a failure. Should we not get through? Nonsense. Nonsense. Of course it is. Of course it is. Trying to play some silver lining about Europa League. We may not even make Europa League. That's the reality, everybody. We may not make Europa League. Okay. It's incredible. We may not actually be in Europa. And to be honest, this team would probably benefit. And people have asked this question. This question has come up a lot. And I want to see what everybody in the live here thinks about this, okay? Would we benefit from going into the Europa League and trying to make a run there? You think that would be more our level and be able to do something? To be honest, I think Max will still get exposed in the Europa League, to be honest. And I personally believe that the group that we have is better than what we are seeing. I see so much at fault in the system. I'll give you an example of yesterday watching this match. Okay. Quadrado makes a cut in. He does beat his man. He makes a cut into space, cutting in centrally. After he does this, he looks up, and you look up. I look up. I'm looking at this. I'm watching this unfold, and I think, my God, he's just beaten a guy, and it's going to force another defender to come into him. And you know what? It doesn't force another defender to come to him because all his players, any of his options, are in the same spot, sitting in the area, waiting for a back post cross. That is pathetic. That is so pathetic and so just plain Jane and weak and predictable and easy to defend. Okay. He had nobody making a run, nobody standing off of him to play a 1-2 with. Like, all our players, and this is, of course, got to come from coach. And if it doesn't come from coach, I don't know what's going on, but they're literally all standing there waiting for a back post cross. I looked at that and I honestly, sadly, I laughed. I laughed because you look at the difference. The second Benfica got the ball, everybody knew their positions. They got there, held their possessions and then they worked. They worked it around. And then when they got close, boom, 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 4 passes. They know exactly what they're going to do, when they're going to do it, how they're going to do it. What do we know how to do? Get ready for crosses. Get ready for crosses. And it's terrible. It's not good enough for the Champions League, everybody. It's barely good enough for Serie A. And to watch these games, even if you're not a football mind or whatnot, you can figure that out and see these shortcomings and think, my God, what is going on? It's so plain Jane. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to watch a team that's supposed to be of a certain caliber come out, and that's the best they can do in a do or die Champions League match. No. And the bright spot was that the youngsters did well coming in. Massive, massive credit to them. And I have to tip my hat to them for coming out there in what would have been an easy scenario to just go through the motions. They came in and gave us a shot of life and fought and tried to do their best. Massive credit to them. Also shines a light that Max needs to start having faith in guys based on performance, not on time spent with the club or experience. Okay. That's what needs to happen. He's not doing it. And I don't think he's the guy. So after this, if we don't start seeing a better mix and guys being rewarded for effort, drive, play, performance, you can't just keep throwing McKinney and Quadrado out there when they're failing. And I get that earlier on we talked about, and you got a couple wins, do or die match. I could see why sticking it through, whatnot, but ultimately we also saw the flip side of that to it, and it's Gatti coming in and not being in sync with the other guys, and you saw the flip side of um, Cost or Illing Jr. being able to have an impact and being able to do some. So it's just major changes need to be done. For me, Allegri has he's gone as far as I think this second term's gonna go. I don't need to see any more for myself to realize the change needs to happen. At this point, I feel like each day that passes, we're wasting time. That's how I truly feel, and it's a sad way to think of it, but honestly, each day that we continue on this current path, we're wasting time. We're preventing us going to the next level, the future of Juventus and whatnot. Every day that passes that we don't try something, we're not going to see change. We're not going to see change. Now let's get some of this. Some of these comments coming in from all of you. And Dan Cat is saying, once you announce that the coach won't be fired no matter what, this is the result. All responsibilities are gone. Yeah, I mean, you can always make that argument about setting the standard, right? And this is the part that's really frustrating for me. And again, going back to Max's words, do not normalize losing at Juventus. And this is why I have a major problem with the things that he says at certain times, because do not try and sell us that this is not a failure to not qualify out of the round of 16. Don't sell that to us. Do not try to get us to settle for mediocrity. It shouldn't be the norm at Juventus, and it shouldn't be accepted. It is a failure. It is a failure. Otherwise, what the hell are we doing here? It's a failure. Don't try to normalize that. Stop giving Quadrado every single start if he's falling flat on his face. 2 corner kick assists. Don't change my mind and don't blind me to an absolute shocker of a game against Empoli. If you got to go 3-5-2, if you have no other right wing back, then guess what? You're going to something else. 4-3-3, 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, something else. But stop trying to tell us. Stop trying to tell us this is not a failure and that we should accept this and whatnot. Stop telling me that it's about the injuries. Stop telling me all of this nonsense. Okay? Sure, we need these key guys and they're going to help us. But to see a team this uncoordinated, unorchestrated, and lack any type of a system, I'm always going to have doubts that those guys come in and have a big effect. And I saw that with Di Maria, because everybody's, you're trying to treat Di Maria like this savior and, oh, he's going to make an impact. No, he had one game where he was a massive impact, and the rest of it was him trying to do everything on his own because we have no game plan. These players still, we're late October, and they have no idea how to play together. We have a midfield that consists of 3 midfielders, and none of them play together. Okay, how many times do you see our midfield pass to one another and work the ball around? Very rarely. I can't even tell. I bet you they make less than 40 passes a game amongst one another. McKinney barely touches the ball 30 times a game, and he plays in the midfield. That is laughable. Okay, that is laughable. Rabiot gets his 40 to 45. Our Regista touches the ball 60 times. I can't think of anybody in a Regista system that touches the ball 60 times. Our system is failing. It is predictable. It is awful. And it's creating problems for these guys, even the individual strong talents, because there is nothing there. Okay. There is nothing there of substance. There's nothing for these players to latch onto. That's why there's no confidence. That's why there's no sense of belief It all starts from there. And again, I fall back on this. How can you properly assess your players? How can you properly assess them without having a system, without knowing what you're trying to do, what their job is, what their role is? You could say this is this person's role, but you see the way it pans out, and there's no way he could accomplish that based on this lack of system. It's incredibly infuriating to watch match in, match out. Okay. Is what it is. Let's get some more comments coming in here. Nader saying the fans don't like the current staff. It's a clean out. Cuadrado is a symbol, Al. It's now defying logic. Yeah. Defying logic. That would be a great way to put a lot of the feelings around this team. And again, I don't know the reasons why exactly these changes haven't happened. Okay, I don't know any of that. There's a lot of speculation as to say that it's the finances. It's maybe fear of getting it wrong again. It could be a number of different things, but one thing I personally feel, again, this is my opinion. No, if nobody agrees with me, that's fine. It's just it's me. It's how I feel, and for me personally, um, we're not going to move forward, and it's time wasted sticking with Max. Okay, the approach has failed. It's nowhere near good enough for the level we want to be at, and if it's not, then what are we ultimately doing? What are we ultimately doing if it's not good enough? It's barely good enough for Serie A. We talked about that. What are we doing here? Now we're trying to be a team that's just happy making it in the Champions League, and not like each year it feels like we're going further and further and further away from where we're supposed to be. And we can't let that happen. And you can't continue to let that standard slide before taking action. And even if you get that action wrong, you're trying. You're trying to maintain a standard. And ultimately, people will appreciate that more than being fed this crap. I at least feel I would appreciate it more if the team tried, if the team made an effort, and hey, it didn't work out, is what it is, but you're trying. You're trying something, okay? You're trying to make that change. You're trying to make something happen. As far as not doing anything at all, for me, it's just time wasted, especially when you can see it. When you can see that and see what's going on, and that it's not getting better, and these little moments here and there, these 4-0s against Empoli and whatnot, like, they're great in the moment in time, but you just know, and I think we all did, and we covered it in the post-match pod, like, there are still questions. There's still questions of this team. So many of them. And it's going to be interesting to see how things go down. In terms of Locatelli, there was a question here. How would you assess Locatelli? Nader said Locatelli has no confidence, man. It was clear yesterday he was nervous, more like anxious. How would I assess Locatelli's performance? Look, again, statistically, numbers-wise, it's all the same. But again, when you watch his team, I don't care who's in there. Paredes, if we kept Ravello's in there, Locatelli's in there. I mean, it doesn't change because the way we use our side midfielders, Rabiot, McKennie, they just bail out. This midfield does not play as a unit. I can't think of a club that I've seen ever play like that, that just does not have a midfield that is in unison and plays in harmony. And these guys don't even play to one another. And so often the ball's at the back yesterday against Benfica. Rabiot's way up. McKennie's way up. Locatelli's running side to side in the middle. They're trying to get this ball. They don't have the lanes to hit Rabiot and McKennie. So they end up being completely useless. Whereas at least if they're back closer to Locatelli, closer to the back line, they can take a pass, accept it, draw somebody out, quick pass back, maybe find Loca. Then, like, it's not good enough. It's such a basic setup. So as far assessing Locatelli, I assess it the same as everybody else, other than the guys that came in, gave a shot at life. Everybody was pretty bad, but it was a bad team game. It was a bad team game. Kostic, maybe your only sign of life in the first half and whatnot, but again, the team play was just frustrating. When Quadrado does finally beat a man, like I said, and all his options are just waiting for a back back post cross. Sorry, excuse me. It pretty much sums it up for me. It just sums it up for me. And I'm frustrated in this team. I'm frustrated in myself for believing. But here's the thing: Allegri's supposed to be a defensive, minded coach or whatever. You got absolutely obliterated yesterday. It could have been 6 or 7, okay, maybe more. Not even that is up to snuff, okay. So what are we really doing here? We're either just waiting it out, okay? Waiting it out for this roster to clean itself up at the end of this season and then moving forward with Max. And to me, that's a bigger shame than what's going on. That is an even bigger shame if we are actually trying to wait things out for a roster to clean up and then get it. Because honestly, again, if you have nothing of substance there to latch onto, it doesn't matter who you bring in. It doesn't matter. I'm telling you, it's just going to be the same hopeful thing. So bring in a coach. My first thing, I laid this out after Monza. I've talked about it after. For me, is stages. We haven't addressed the stages accordingly, and we haven't committed properly, but it starts with the coach. Okay. Start with the coach, then gauge and define your roster properly according to a set system, what direction you want to go to, and commit to that. Commit to that system, that coach for a minimum 2 seasons. This is Max's second season. It's worse than last season. Okay. That's why I don't need to see anymore. I don't need to see anymore. It's worse than last season, and there's no progress being made. Okay. So we start there and then gauge and define your roster accordingly, clean it up. And you know what? To be honest, I would have been okay with leaving management alone, but because of this being this long before we actually take these steps properly, I've lost confidence in the upper management. And Allegri, this has been a complete disaster. Going to Pirlo, then bailing on Pirlo, and now going to Allegri and it being a complete nightmare. The upper management needs to face the music for that. Okay. Absolutely has to take the fault for that. And you've got to make some changes, wholesale changes. But honestly, how can we continue with Max? Even the one thing he's supposed to be strong at, which is the defense and whatnot, it just got obliterated. His approach is weak, makes the players fearful. They have no system, no belief. They don't play as a team, and we're in late October. Big matches, they've failed consistently since last season, carries on into this season. I've seen all I need to. I don't know what else you could possibly have to see to make the decision to go a different route. Now, there's all sorts of rumors that we're going to hear, and that's in regards to essentially that there might be an agreement between Agnelli and Max, and they might work this out in with less financial burden on Juventus for Allegri to just walk away for the good of the club. Obviously, he and Agnelli are friends and whatnot, but honestly, yeah, it's got to happen, in my opinion. World Cup break is when I think it's going to go down. If we come out of the World Cup break and Max is still our coach, that's scary for me to think about. That's scary for me to think about as a fan because, again, I just laid it all out as far as trying something, trying to turn the tide, letting the standard slip. there's this fine line of being realistic, but still maintaining your standards and whatnot. So whether we look at some of this talent on the roster and people want to get into player performances and all that and whatnot, and I look at it in a uh, little bit more broader in terms of units, midfield units, center back pairings, and system and play, structured play, rigidity. I look at it a little bit more like that, and then, break down the players in terms of execution, not just, hey man, all these players suck, they're no good, and oh, Rabiot's the lowest rating, but we praised him for 2 games against garbage teams. Well, listen, everybody was garbage yesterday. Our system got absolutely destroyed by an undefeated team who knows exactly who they are, what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. We don't know what we're going to do. Every game is going to be completely different for us because we're just freewheeling it. You have a midfield that doesn't even pass amongst each other. You have a center back, that Gatti's come in. He knows nothing of Bonucci pretty much. And training sessions are great. They do not replicate match minutes. They don't. Scrimmages, whatever. It's as close as you're going to get, but you're not going to replicate a Champions League game and even big league games in training sessions. You're not going to do that. So, banking on these guys, it got Max into trouble. And he's in deep right now, and I don't see any way out. The attitude of the players, the attitude of the team, again, still united, still doing their little huddles and everything like that. And I think it's fine. I see some change in terms of that, some attitude and whatnot, but ultimately, it's Max's portion that I think is letting them down the rest of the way. Okay, that's how I feel. Anyways, we're gonna take a little bit of break from all this before we get into kind of Storm the Barn. All right, so we are gonna have a Storm the Barn session. We are gonna try to bring in some live call-ins too for the Storm the Barn session. Okay, so we're just gonna take a bit of a break here, and we're gonna get to an AJC tweet of the match for yesterday. And we got to have some fun. And I actually love this. The whole team said this is clearly it because we love seeing this from followers, subscribers, whatever. Like, this is just gold. This was the AJC tweet of the match after yesterday's shit show, basically. So there you go. There's our AJC tweet of the match. El Troy Loco coming in here. You're all fired. And using a screenshot from either the pod, probably one of the daily update videos, but that's gold, absolutely gold. So we all got a good laugh at that, and that's fantastic. And also, you guys, another way to support us, hey, clipping cool segments or moments, clips that you might agree with, everything like that. And there you go, man himself is in here right now. There you go, congratulations, AJC tweet of the match going to Troy there. There you go. Fantastic stuff. But yeah, hey, share the content. Okay. Yeah, by all means, clip videos if you agree with stuff or you want to use it as a discussion point. By all means, we absolutely love that. And it all helps. It all helps. So the AJC Army is strong. You guys are fantastic. And, we try our best to, keep things as positive as always. But again, we do not, we don't filter ourselves. Okay. So you're not going to get anything filtered here at All UV Cast. We are straight from the heart and we call it how we see it. And I've always believed in running it that way. And if some of the fans don't agree with it and want to be more positive and, it's not us. We've always been raw, unedited, and unfiltered because we feel it's the most authentic and genuine. It's being us and who we are, and that will never change. Okay, you guys keep doing a great job. The live chat's fantastic. We're gonna get close to the Storm the Barn session. Just wanted to probably highlight a couple things. I mean, if you were going to name, it's funny that Ealing ends up getting man of the match, essentially just coming in as a sub. That says a lot about this game too, because the young guys themselves, it's going to catch up to them too, this lack of a system. So while everybody is, really excited, and rightfully so, he did a great job. Like I said, massive credit to the young guys for coming in there in a game that could have been very, very easy for them to just wash their hands of and say, you know what, we're basically done. Like, we're just going to go through the motions here. This game's over. Could have been easy for them to do it. They didn't do it. But now all these talks of, you know what, play this guy, play all that guy, they're going to fall victim to the same thing the rest of the players have, and that's just lack of system. A guy like Ealing Jr., even Sule, might have more confidence in those 1v1 situations when we find them and can engage that on the flanks. I have faith in Sule. He'll have confidence to try and take guys on. Ealing Jr., he'll have confidence to take guys on. Quadrado's starting to lose that confidence because he's kind of lost a step. He's regressed quite a bit, but again, the system will catch up to those young guys too. But they have the legs, they have the drive because they want to make a name for themselves. They want to get involved. I don't think you can ignore that completely. And Max has ignored it quite a bit. So it's interesting. Interesting to see where we go from here. Obviously, immediately, Lecce on the weekend. Okay. Let's get start there. The league, in my personal opinion, if we don't make Europa League, this team could probably benefit more from focusing on domestic football. And I don't think we're of the cut to be performing in 3 competitions. We're not. I think that's clear. So for me, it's more beneficial for us to focus on the league. We need to get in the top 4. That's the reality. Absolutely have to. That's taken into account everything. Everything as far as roster, everything as far as finances. Like, top 4 is a must for this team. I think we're stretching ourselves out if we get into Europa. I'm not saying drop the next game, make sure you don't make it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that my belief is that it's going to hurt us. It could potentially hurt us more. Do we think we'll go to a complete run? How's everybody's confidence level on making a deep run in the Europa League? How's everybody feel about that? Do you honestly believe we can go on a deep run in the Europa League? I think it's going to be very, very difficult even there based on what I'm seeing out of our play. Okay, I still believe it's going to be very, very difficult. If that's the case, and we can all kind of think that we're a bit stretched out when it comes to depth, when it comes to our managers' willingness to rotate players and whatnot, I think it's better for us to shift the focus back home. And they have to finish top 4. And I think stretching there is going to be across the 3 comps. It's going to make it difficult for us. It's going to hurt. We will even struggle in the Conference League, according to Jeremiah. So there you go. Troy, basically, they lost to Monza. Europa League, hey, fair, right? I mean, the doubts are there. And Animesh, on the flip side, need Europa for the finances. Sure. But again, I can't help but have that fear that we're stretching ourselves. And top 4 in league is an absolute must. That trumps even that. But again, the finances, and I get getting into Europa just to get that and whatnot, but they're going to be forced to look for answers. But again, management, upper management, they got to take some of the fault here. Max Allegri, I think he's got no leg to stand on anymore. He made the calls for this roster, and whether it's their injuries, whether it's whatever, You've got guys, they went to bat for you more than they did Saudi, more than they did Pirlo, who neither of them got a Mercado, whatever. And it's worse. It's worse. So your final say in the Mercado and everything has led you to this as well. And it's still not good enough. So I'm just not finding it. I'm not buying any of it. So for me, Max, see ya later. All right. We're going to get Storm the Barn session going. So you guys can start getting your questions in for Storm the Barn, everything like that. Okay. And for those that want to maybe join me and get in on a call, we can make that happen too. I have one lined up, okay, that we're going to get in there. And we're going to bring him on. He could share some of his thoughts, maybe raise a question or whatnot for the Storm the Barn session, okay? So I'm going to share with everybody how you could take part. This is how you reach me on WhatsApp, okay? And should you not want to be part of the call-in sessions and just want to chat Juve sometime, whatever, hey, that's cool too. All right. I've been having a great time meeting a bunch of supporters of the All Juve cast and everything like that, and I've had a lot of fun. So even if you just want to do that, that's cool. That's how you get me on WhatsApp. You do not call me. Okay, don't call me. I will call you. You simply want to join as a call in. All you have to do is send me a message, okay? And I will call you in queue as you come up. I don't know how many we're going to get to. It depends how this goes, okay? But we are going to start off with some call-ins, okay? And again, for everybody else, this is that's my number there and whatnot. But for everybody else, you can just drop it in here if you don't want to actually get in on a call, okay? So we're gonna line one up. Call in now, and we're gonna see if we can get Jeremiah. See if we can get Jeremiah, and who was the first call in on our watch along, and it was great stuff. So let's see if we can get him.
Hey Al, how you do? I'm not gonna even ask you how you're doing. I think we're all feeling like shit, right?
Yeah, you know what? These sessions always make it a bit better, and it helps. It helps at least a little bit of therapy, and we go through it together, brother. We go through it together. So for Storm the Barn, Jeremiah, is there something you want to discuss? Is there a question you have directly?
Yes, I do. I would like to just highlight a few things before I get to the question, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. First and foremost, I will say this is no longer Allegri's fault. To be honest, this is no longer Allegri's fault. I think this is a big time management mistake. I think they are to blame. They have a role to play, and sacking a manager is part of their role. Do you agree, Al?
I mean, yes, I do agree that, I've been saying, management has to bear the blame for us getting to this part. I don't think Max is clear of fault, but I do agree with you in what you're overall saying. Yes.
Yeah, this should have been done after the Monza game. We have teams like Chelsea doing it, Aston Villa has done it. I think we missed a big time. We missed big time on Unai Emery. I think Unai Emery would have been a very good manager for us. We missed that boat. Aston Villa has done it. Even Monza has done it. And some other Serie A teams, they have done it, and they are seeing better results. So this is no longer Allegri's fault. I mean, this is definitely management's fault. They should have sacked him a long time ago, and they just keep dragging it. I am very concerned with the state of Juve. I've been supporting Juve since 1991. Man, that's 31 years, and I have never seen the club in this sort of mess. Like this bad, especially on the pitch performance. And I'm feeling I am forever optimistic, but it's hard to be optimistic. I'm saying that if Max is not sacked by the World Cup or even just after the World Cup, I don't think we are even going to make top 4 in the Serie A. I don't think we are even going to make the top 4 in the Serie A. And I think Agnelli and the rest of the top management, they're gonna run this club down just like how the Glazers did with Man United.
Yeah.
This is what I really feel, and Juve is going to struggle to come out of this. The repercussions are very, very high. The price to pay is going to be very high.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to suffer for many years if the bleeding does not stop. If Max is not sacked, Max is done. Max is done. There's no turning this around. It's done.
Yeah, they're on a slippery slope for sure. And I do agree with your point that if we look back to that moment, all the doubts were there. I mean, we covered it quite a bit on the channel here that, hey, we have major doubts about the level that we had hit, the low that we had hit, and being able to dig this team out of there. And those doubts are still there with Max. So your point about making that change at that point, it's speculatory, but obviously, I mean, we could arguably be in a better spot right now if we had made the move at that time. We won't ever know. And of course, it's all speculation, but at the same time, it's at a dangerous point now of getting worse and much, much worse. So it's going to be interesting to see now the players' reaction, because now that you're out of the Champions League and again, you've been struggling against lower sides, we're really going to see kind of what players and stuff, like where their heads lying, where their attitude goes, because these retiros, I don't really believe too much in them and whatnot. But again, you do a retiro, you have an international break where our players actually performed well when they went on international duty. It's when they come back, that's the damn problem. And again, for me, it's because Max isn't cutting it as far as his approach and his system. So
the coach, this team is playing like a bunch of friends meeting for the first time and being managed by a random guy on the beach. You get what I mean? It's like we have absolutely no idea what we are doing on the pitch. Absolutely clueless.
Yeah.
It is a pain to watch. It's not, I wouldn't say horrible. It's a pain. It's a massive pain.
It's painful.
What do you think?
It's painful. It's painful to see, and it's tough to watch.
And Al, before I get to my question, I'm going to be very frank. I do not think we will make top 4 if Max is still around.
Yeah,
and I really don't think so, because we are losing against the big teams. We are losing points against the smaller teams, the mid-table teams. I don't think we're going to make the top 4.
Yeah.
And if Max does not leave, if this management does not have the balls to sack him and keep him for the sake of stability, what bullshit is stability? There's no stability in this team.
Yeah.
So if they gotta grow some balls. They gotta sack him. They gotta take the bite. They gotta bite the bullet. They gotta take the loss, because losing out in Europe is costing us a lot of money as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think we missed the big boat in Unai Emery. I think he would have been a very good coach for us, and he has just left to Aston Villa. It's crazy. But anyway, Al, I would like to get to the question. I do not want to take too much of your time.
Okay.
So this is a hypothetical question for you. If you, Alberto, if you were hired to come in the Juve organization as a sporting director or something in the Marotta role with full power and authority on the footballing side of things, right?
Yeah.
If you were hired to come in and make critical changes, what are the first 3 top priority changes will you make at the club?
As far as
given the situation,
as far as the roster goes?
No, I'm talking about,
or just the team, and like what changes would I make organizationally?
You're going to make some critical changes, right?
Yeah.
So you are brought in to have the responsibility of making these changes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the top 3 priority changes, the first 3 that you will make right now at this club?
Okay, and that's as an organization, everything. So for me, I again, it's not that role necessarily would have that power, but for me, Agnelli needs to not be the face anymore. He'll always be involved, which is fine, and he can do that. But for me, you need somebody else to look over the actual footballing side. Okay. Footballing side of things, proper direction and everything. He could do the business side of that. He doesn't need to be the face. He can be behind the scenes for that. And Yelly will always be involved, but he's got to bear the weight. And it was ultimately his call because it all starts and ends with Agnelli. He needs to bite the bullet on this whole misdirection between Pirlo and then Allegri. Coach, without a doubt, has to be changed. As far as the roster goes, you clean house with these guys that just are hitting. They're hitting their point of no return, and we should have arguably not had certain extensions in there. But we have these options that we're getting bidden on right now. For me, you change the scope of your contracts. That's a major issue with Juventus. Change the scope. How much of these are we hearing about now? So Bonucci is not getting extended. What's happening is that the contract has an option in there that automatically kicks in that puts him until 2024. Quadrado had the same option that kicked in this year for them. And then you have Sandro again, in which you didn't move, and you could have made a decision on Sandro a couple of years ago. And for me, it's how they look and how they operate that needs to change dramatically, more so than the guys and the players and whatnot. For me, it's a whole business model that needs to change. All the successful teams have contingency planning. Juventus has very little contingency planning. We are now set up in the best manner we ever have been to have proper contingency planning, but it needs to be backed. And what I mean by that is integration of these players into the actual roster in a useful manner for us. That's what needs to happen. So before we get to any players, anything like that, our business model needs to change completely for us to find sustainable success, in my opinion.
Exactly.
And I hope that answers your question, kind of how I'm looking at this team and organization. But there's a lot to dissect, and that's a great one that we could probably carry on into Match Day Live for Empoli and everything like that, Jerry. But hey, it's been amazing having you on, Jeremiah. I want to thank you for coming on again.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Thank you, Al. See you soon.
We'll see you soon and talk to you in the live chat here. Ciao, brother.
Ciao. Bye.
All right. So Jeremiah with some great stuff there, everybody. And again, it's, where do you start? For me, the business model as a whole needs to be completely revamped for Juventus. And that ties into cutting the cord on guys at the right time, knowing when to say your goodbye. Bonucci, in his performance yesterday, he's not going to give you the longevity of Chiellini. Okay. We know that it's not there. Quadrado, again, it's not going to happen. But again, when you break that down, it's that contract. It's those contract options that those automatically kick in and everything like that. Our contract business needs to be much, much sharper. And that's been a problem, arguably even dating back to Marotta. So a lot of work to be done by this team. Okay. So if anybody else wants to take part in the call-in, again, just text me on my WhatsApp at that number if you want to join us on the call-in. Now, so the number's back up there. Just text me on there, okay, if you want to call in. We're going to get to another Storm the Barn here, and that's coming in from Dells. At what point do the board get together and oust Agnelli? Well, this is it. What he's doing is borderline corruption with the way he's protecting his mate Allegri. Pirlo and Sarri should claim for unfair dismissal. It comes in to this basically, and what are we doing? Are we protecting our friends, or are we trying to run a club, a team here. We're losing our standard. It's slipping lower and falling lower and lower by the second. So I think Agnelli needs to be relieved of that overall final say on this team, and it needs to be someone else. We need a fresh outlook. We need a fresh approach, and that goes into the business model, that goes into contracts. Everything needs to be revamped, because if you look at where we're at now, it hasn't just happened overnight. This has been something that's happened for years. For years, it's been coming, right? And now we're just seeing it hit full throttle. So it just, again, everything needs to be evaluated. And we're being told that everything is being evaluated and has been getting evaluated for a month. So we have to just wait and see. All right. But yeah, it's frustrating times. And again, we get these matches here and there. You're hoping for this turnaround. You're hoping for this pick me up. But for me, it's this team can't get it done in big games. That ultimately kills Allegri for me. Your team just cannot get it done in the big games. Why can't they get it done in the big games? I truly believe it's because we do not play a brand of football that can put our players in a situation to succeed against top clubs, in those tough matches. Our chances go way down against the good teams, usually. Okay. And the chances that we do get, the opportunities, it's very low percentage, guys. So there's just, for me, it all falls down on that. Lack of a system, lack of a structure. These guys aren't getting help from their manager. And when you tack onto that the young guys have looked better and they're not getting the minutes, that's the thing. Miretti, Fagioli. Let's talk about Fagioli. Even in yesterday's horror show, this kid can't get some game time? What are we doing? What are we doing here? It's shocking to me. If there was an opportunity to play Fagioli, of course yesterday would have been a time. He's not getting game time any other reason. And you know what? Why did we lie to this kid? Did we lie to Fagioli in order to extend his contract to keep him as Juve property for plus Valenza? Did we actually do that to this kid? Did we actually do that? Did we actually promise him, give him a false promise in order to lock up that contract extension just so we didn't lose him? Because that's complete bullshit if we did. And if we would do something like that, we deserve all the young talent to snub us moving forward. But it really raises questions when he can't even get a minute in a game like that, and he's not getting continued minutes. It starts to really raise that question for me. Did we give him false promises just to lock up that extension? It's frustrating stuff. We're going to get to some more Storm the Barn questions here. We've got Anthony coming in with one. If we continue with Agnelli and Max and we don't make the top four, how can this team improve without the finances? Well, here's the thing. If we don't not making top four is not an option. Like, we absolutely have to get in there. Okay. You could talk about Europa, you could talk about all this and getting in there for finance and stuff like that, but not making the top four, I tell you. And if what we're doing now is at risk, then changes have to happen. So we're late October. We know the World Cup break is upon us, and we just have to wait. But here's the thing. You really have to start questioning the ambition of these guys, this team, this club overall, in the fact that we haven't made the changes. Big teams, if we want to be in the mix with big teams, they would have acted by now. you can bet your ass they would have acted by now. And the finances, Allegri's contract, this and that, it's all noise. It's all noise. You find a way, you make it happen. That's the bottom line. Any other big team would have taken action by now. So I have to really, really question this club's ambitions at this point. Really, really do. Next up is Dan Kada here, coming in with Storm the Barn. Are Bonucci's struggles because of tension with Allegri, who he has never gotten along with? I don't think his struggles come from the manager. I think that their relationship has always been rocky, and that's well documented. But Max has had that issue with several players. And I think Bonucci's struggles, honestly, are because his partnership. I think Bonucci benefits out of certain playing styles next to him. And that style that has to be next to him is an aggressor. Yesterday, he played the game without an aggressor. Gatti typically, I think Gatti can develop into that aggressor style, but he's actually like more of a mix of a clean type of style defender. But I think he'll take shape of the aggressor. But it's a one-off for Gatti, and I don't want to go too harsh on him because of the fact that he got dropped in, not expecting to start, and it's a Champions League match, do or die in Lisbon. But Bonucci struggles tremendously if he doesn't have that aggressor next to him and that cleanup guy with him. So even with Bremer, he still struggles, but it's better. It's better. With Chiellini, though, and that partnership and, obviously the BBC there, we'll never see that again. We'll never see that again. Bonucci's making mental errors now to the level that he never used to before as well. So for me, when you start seeing that, it's not like a relationship thing or a conscious thing. I think it's, and let's not downplay the situation Juventus is in right now. This is an overwhelming situation for the players. Okay. This is really, really hard when you're one of those guys. And Bonucci is one of those guys. Hell, he wears the armband. You bear that weight. You bear that. And this is an overwhelming scenario. And it's one that he's not used to. He hasn't really gone through that with Juve the past few years. Like even in Sarri's year, they won the Scudetto. Last year with Max, it wasn't to this degree. This is an intense scenario. And that might be a reason why Max isn't going to young guys, but still doesn't make it right in my personal opinion. But for me, the struggles with Bonucci are, I think, times catching up real quick to Bonucci. And you factor in this whole scenario that the team's in, and it's overwhelming. It's extremely overwhelming. And he's not the only guy that needs a shot of life, a spark, and everything to kind of reignite something. That's why I think the coaching change kind of has to happen first in order to get it going, right? And Dan just wants to add on to that, saying that I think it's been tough, but in Bonucci being the last man left from that era, he was the youngest of the BBC. Yes, he was the youngest and whatnot, but again, I think it's the whole moment situation at Juve right now is extremely overwhelming. And again, you need something to fall back on. They need something to have a belief in. And right now, that just gets low. Every time you fail in a big match, we start all over. You have to win against Lecce now, and you have to start picking up these little boosts of momentum. But the problem is you can't get one of those big match wins. Those are the ones that are really going to try and drive and like that spark. So if it ain't coming with Max based on pragmatism and approach, you got to make a change. It's just, and ultimately it's just results. Okay. We were always fed results, this, results, that with Max. Well, the results are gone. Results are gone. Okay. And the standard is slipping. If now's not the time to change, when is? Wait till World Cup. What we're wasting. Every moment is wasted time. Okay. That's how I feel right now. So it's going to be, and again, Michael Razzo getting in here with no leaders. In the past, we had leaders on the team. We've overpaid guys who don't care. This needs to change. Look, again, you can have all the leadership in the world. And this thing started to slide even with some of those leaders around. You can have all the leaders in the world. You need to have an identity, a system, something where I want this player because this is where he's going to fit. This is what we're going to do. The midfield needs to be a unit. I've never seen a midfield that doesn't play together. Ours does not, and it doesn't matter what players you put in there. Miretti does interchange with our registas a bit. Our flank play, so predictable. Our forwards now are left just watching and walking to the back post to look for a cross. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. So we need a lot of work. We've had a lot of dissection here of Juve's situation and everything. Who's at fault and what do we do? How do we move on? Like, why isn't Max being fired? Like, where do you go? Like, Europa League. What's this team going to benefit from? Hey, it's everybody's own opinion based on their perspectives, how they see things. Okay. For me, this team needs to change something. You need to try to do something. Okay. And how long do we want to wait? Like, if we think it's too late now, like, we're going to wait even further. Like, you could have arguably salvaged something at this season, and maybe it didn't work, but you would have tried, right? The problem for me is they didn't really try. So they're saying, essentially management is saying, look, we had Sarri, we had Pirlo, and now we have Allegri. It's the players. The problem with that is, okay, you have players stating they don't understand. They don't understand what we're supposed to do out there. There's no shared understanding. If you look at this team on the pitch, the play is not in unison. The players have no chemistry into October. And if you look back at Max's tenure, his first tenure with Juventus, when he first took over, the team, they knew who they were. And he had a very strong roster. Okay. He added a couple pieces here. He made okay out of some guys that weren't that great. But if you look at that first tenure, here's the one thing. We always had doubt in players. And we always had, until it started to need tweaking, and he needed to start to come up with the answers as the main guys that ran the show moved away. He needed to come up with the answers. And that slowly started to fade. And then we started questioning players. Players this, players that, all the time under Max. 18-19, we questioned Paulo Dybala. He goes on to have an MVP season when Max leaves. He does fine, honestly. Injuries ended up killing Dybala, but performance-wise, he had one bad season post-Allegri. And he was riddled with injuries and COVID. It's tough. But we were questioning Dybala. Dybala's gone on. He's been good. Again, injury got him. We will always question players under Max Allegri. You will always question players and good players. If he needs the Galacticos to come in here to beat the likes of Monza and Salernitana and Sampdoria and just to compete with big teams that aren't huge teams like Benfica, then he needs to go because we're never going to see the Galacticos. Okay. We're never going to see the Galacticos at Juventus. So that's just pretty much sums it up for me and where I'm at. And wrapping up this pod is that I don't see us getting anywhere with Max. Not now and not in the future. So any moment carried on beyond now is a waste of time, in my personal opinion. Okay. It just is what it is. And we'll get some comments here as we wrap up here, John Stewart. The opposite side of that situation is that we stand making terrible signings after Marotta left. Fact is, we're still suffering from bad signings. I still believe Max has to go. There was bad signings with Marotta as well, though. And there was awful contract extensions Marotta made. And that's why earlier on with Jeremiah's question on the call in there that I got to, I basically stated that the business model has to change tremendously. Everything needs to be revamped. Okay. But when you're looking at this, we have always doubted players under Max. Okay. And always attack them, always whatever, and good players. You are always going to get that with Max Allegri. Questioning players. At what point do you just realize that he doesn't have anything that's set to make a group come together and succeed? And that at that point, I think the group was already developed and there. And he just helped guide it along. But when that group needed reshaping, needed work, needed retooling, he had no ideas. And we were banking on those individual guys. Oh, Dybala, this and all that. Oh, he's not good enough. You can't bank on him. Sorry, banked on him. He had an MVP season. We still won the Scudetto even though we started hurdling. We didn't give that man players. We didn't get players for any of our other two coaches after that. You're always going to question players under Max Allegri. I truly believe that. And for me, it's time. Cut the cord. Stop the bleeding, Juve. We have to stop the bleeding. Everybody, a couple things. If you could take the second to like the video while you're here, that would be huge. It all helps the channel. When we're done recording, if you could just drop a comment, any comment, okay, would help out the channel tremendously. Again, if you want to help out and support the channel, hey, little tidbits like just tagging us in anything. It could be like the tweet of the match there, something like this, just fun stuff. If you want to share some of the content and make clips and whatnot out of the videos, that's great. Use them as talking points. It all helps. Also, check out the store online, link to YouTube. There's an awesome new Del Piero design out there. That all helps the channel as well. You guys are amazing in the live chat. We always thank you guys for the support. Times aren't the greatest, okay? But we make it through together, Juventini, okay? And, we go through the tough times, and it makes the victories sweeter. Juventus will rise again. We just don't know when right now, okay? But it will happen. It will happen, all right? Everybody, obviously, we'll be back on the weekend for a match day live. That'll be Saturday before the match. I will do a live watch along for that game, okay? So make sure you join. I'll be the commentator for that one. As always, no matter what, fino alla fine, forza Juve, okay? Ciao tutti. Enjoy the rest of your weeks regardless of what went down. We'll meet up again on the weekend, but I'll keep you posted with some daily update videos throughout the rest of the week. And then, hey, what have I been saying for the past month? One game at a time. Let's take it one game at a time. Let's see if we get some reaction out of management, everything like that, and we will see. We miss your commentators. Hey, I appreciate that. I will be commentating, doing the watch along for the Lecce match. So I hope to see you all there. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your weeks. Fino alla fine, forza Juve, and as Justin B says, Allegri out, Alberto in. Ciao tutti.